let's talk about a Book of Boba Fett. This was chapter 4, The Gathering Storm, which, funny enough, actually, you know the Expanse I keep banging on about? One of the big flagships on Laconia is called The Gathering Storm. So I yet to tweet this, and hopefully by the time this podcast is actually out, I will have tweeted it. But like there's a little Expanse reference in the title, which I think is pretty cool. But no, this is The Gathering Storm. Jon Favreau wrote it, and Kevin Tagami, I think is his name, I'll stick it on screen, is the director of it. Now, this is all about the flashback scenes of Boba Fett recruiting Fennec Shand and how they meet, which is something I've been waiting for ages now to actually see how that actually takes place, because I was wondering how they actually met or how he got there, because we know he saved her. We didn't actually know how it happened.
Yeah, we've kind of just been like sat in the background, like knowing from Mandalorian that Boba does save Fennec, but we don't know when or how when it actually comes about. So it's actually interesting to now see him come along. Although interesting to see how they actually recorded and filmed the scene.
This is the bit where he walks up to her.
Yeah, when when they had to reuse the Mandalorian cut.
Yeah, it was definitely archive footage there in a sense, but
yeah, where those sweet spurs at, Mando?
Yeah, because I didn't think he had them as the Tusken or the Tusken version of himself. Like, I didn't think they gave him some spurs. Like, it's not very Tusken Raider, is it?
No, and it's also just not very Boba Fett-y either. But
no, he did have spurs in Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, I think.
Does he? Because I don't think they ever accentuated the sound of spurs.
I'm pretty sure he does in at least Empire. Because when obviously, you know, Darth Vader ambushes Han Solo and the crew on Bespin, it's like, we would be honoured if you'd join us for dinner.
Yeah.
When Fett steps out, I believe you can hear the spurs on him. Because he's sort of one who set the trend for it.
Maybe it's just like not a big thing that is obviously like...
No.
Because obviously it hasn't...
Does he have it in his current armour in the present? I can't remember. It's one of those small details you only notice if you're looking for it in a way. Does he have it in his current armour in the present day? I'm not sure if he does.
I don't think he does, no. Because I don't...
I'll have to double check. Like, I don't...
We could just be lying to ourselves here and we just blocked it out of our memory.
Got PTSD or selective memory. Selective amnesia for spurs in the Book of Boba Fett. But also we've got Fennec Shand. This also reinforced the mod idea on Tatooine, which appears to be something which is like wildly growing there. And also we get the introduction of a mod shop, which is obviously in 9 ABY, so this is very close to obviously when the Mandalorian's running around, because that's the whole cause of Fennec. But seeing the modifier and all that sort of jazz was really cool. Did you see the detail I tweeted out today about Ming-Na Wen, who plays Fennec Shand? That was one of her son, or her son actually, was one of the teenagers in there, like with the modifications on him.
Oh no, I think I missed that.
Yeah, I can't remember what the name was off the top of my head. Either way, really cool little detail. And obviously the modifier, like the chief guy of it, is Stephen Thundercat Brunel, who's like a famous musician. I've never heard of him, I'll admit it. Like you should hit. You're more into music than I am.
I say I'm quite heavily into music, but again, I think I haven't heard of him, possibly on the basis that it's probably not my genres of choice.
The music choice in the mod scene was certainly something as well. A lot of people are like, this isn't Star Wars. I'm like, it fits. Like, as one of our good friends pointed out, Amy, and hopefully she'll be on the podcast soon, it was like with these sort of like modifiers, all like teenage like rebelling in a sense. So obviously it's going to break the norm and be different. That's why obviously their speeder bikes are a bit out there. Their music choice is a bit out there, but it's not very like Tatooine vibes, is it?
Yeah, I think I said this to you before, but I think it's a bit more of like a Coruscant-y like vibe, as in like you'd expect to see them and for them to fit more into like a planet like Coruscant.
Yeah, it's sort of one of those like techie planets, but also like with the whole sort of like urbanization and such.
Yeah, and they've got that like cyberpunk, goth punk sort of look. That's
immediately what I thought when I saw them in Chapter 3. Obviously, we got introduced to Sophie Thatcher's character, Drash, or Drash, however you want to call it. And that was, I was like, this is immediately cyberpunk. Like, I've never played cyberpunk, but I've seen the poster art and the trailers. I'm like, this looks a mile away.
I have the game, and I've installed it, and I still have not played it yet.
That's like me with any new game that is released apart from Halo Infinite. I have still not played Pokemon Diamond, which is in the Switch just over there. I have played 30 minutes of it, and maybe we'll finish it in the next 5 years.
We hope. It's just a case of having that sweet free time that we all dream of having.
Now, so you want to talk about a few things from this, because you've actually came prepared and assembled some notes.
Yeah.
So... I started at 7:30 this morning talking about Boba Fett and haven't shut up yet, so you can take it away.
So, I sat down and just like wanted to make a few notes on it, because I feel like watching the last sort of 3 episodes, I've sort of like watched it very casually and I haven't actually paid a lot of attention to it. And now actually paying attention to the details in it, I think it's quite interesting to see stuff like with Fennec Shand, like we see another gadget that she uses, a little like droid, like in.
This was sort of the probe, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's almost like a take on the probe that's from the Star Wars Battlefront 2 game, which is carried by one of the commando types.
Idens, yeah.
Yeah,
it's sort of that small little Imperial probe, isn't it? It's a bit like that.
Yeah.
What it actually looks like, it looks like the interrogator droid seen on the Death Star typically. That was what caught my eye.
Yeah, except obviously just a much smaller version. And the way that Fennec uses it in the episode, obviously, is that she sends it off, it floats inside Jabba's palace, and then scans every single room and picks up every single like piece of terrain and enemy within there, and then can relay it afterwards. And I think it's very cool and very interesting to see that gadget. But it's also a question of then how many more cool gadgets does Fennec have? Because we also see her like vibro cut blade that she uses on the pipes and on.
We've seen those before, where she throws them around. Like, I'm pretty sure she uses them. She uses them in Boba Fett as well, but she uses them in the Bad Batch when she's fighting Cad Bane. Speaking of which, though, like, I love how obviously this sort of probe droid, if we're calling it, is an expansion after she's been introduced, because that could have been helpful on Moff Gideon's cruiser in Mando when they were invading that.
Yeah.
Obviously, they hadn't thought of that idea just yet, so therefore, like, it's been introduced at the last minute. Then again, they definitely had plot armor to a high degree on that, because they could see stormtroopers around corners on Gideon's cruiser.
Yeah.
I feel sorry for them.
I mean, honestly, they're just trying to work their day job. They're just trying to make some money.
I like the bad guys. What can I say?
Unfortunately, they just wrong place, wrong time.
Yeah, those dark troopers are just useless.
Yeah.
Can't defeat a Jedi. What a waste of space.
I put all this money and time and effort into building some dark troopers, and bam, one lightsaber.
I can see why Gideon basically went. Now it's like, I think it's like, oh, I agree. But obviously, like Fennec Shand, obviously we got more of her and like how she's sticking around. Though I have to, she said like when they were leaving Jabba's palace, like, oh yeah, I'll be sticking around for a while. Then obviously Fett went to the Sarlacc pit. We'll discuss the other moment in a minute. But he immediately went to the Sarlacc pit after the other thing, and basically dove the ship straight into it. At that point, I thought Fennec would be like, on second thought, you're a madman. You've clearly been mentally deranged by hanging out in this area. I'm out. It's like, you've just dived your entire ship into a Sarlacc pit.
Yeah, she's probably sat there thinking, this guy didn't use Factor 50. He's clearly had a little bit too much sun, and now we're facing straight into a Sarlacc pit, looking for his armor, which... Okay, yeah, like it's iconic and it's made out of Beskar, so it's like strong, but also you could probably get some more, and it's probably not worth losing a whole ship and your life to a Sarlacc. And then there's obviously also the questionable situation where it comes out and they decide to
I was expecting a jump scare there from a mile away. Like, I was making notes on the laptop as I was watching it, and I was like, try not to look directly at the screen, because I hate horror and jump scares. I absolutely hate it with a passion. So I was like, sort of reeling back in the chair going, it's going to happen any second now. I know it. And boom, it happens. I'm like, oh, for God's sakes.
It felt like a very long, dragged out jump scare, because sort of as soon as they started peering over and getting like further and further and then flashing the light around, I was like, okay, it's coming. And then I was kind of like, okay, at some point they are going to do the jump scare, and just felt like it was maybe dragged out a little bit too long, in my opinion. But yeah, it's definitely something you could see a mile away. And then dealing with the Sarlacc was an interesting choice of maneuver on.
I'm surprised the seismic charge did not like propel Slave One back. But then again, it's a charge that sort of goes out on that sort of plane, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's not like it goes up or anything. But it did sink Jabba's barge even further. Yeah, like it sunk it into the sand.
Yeah, but I mean, like if you look at the episodes from The Mandalorian and Star Wars Episode 2, when Kenobi is chasing Jango and Boba.
Yeah.
We do see the charge go outwards, but we do also see it expand like upwards as well.
Yeah, because there's like a mini sort of expansion thing in a sense.
Yeah. So it almost expands on like a length level and then does like a secondary explosion. I mean, love the sound every single time. Every single time that sound comes on, I'm just like,
it was still a terrible tactical idea just to go face first into it.
When he was facing over, I thought he would like float forward, just shoot into the Sarlacc pit.
Yeah, because he tried using the guns, but obviously they just go straight through the sand, so it's like not really working there. So I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, I thought he would have just shot into it or dropped some sort of charge in to kill the Sarlacc before just looking into it, because either way you have to deal with it.
Where they release the seismic charge, it sort of slides down the back. It doesn't look like it's going to. You think, uh-oh.
Yeah.
So we got Slave One back. We lost Slave One. Oh no.
And Boba Fett died in episode 4.
All right, it was a pleasure being with you, everyone. That's the end of the Book of Boba Fett. It's a short book.
I say it literally falls out and falls like right next to the back engines, and I'm like, okay, this is just...
That sail barge ain't going to be only back here in 5 minutes' time.
This is looking very precariously dangerous now.
But speaking of obviously Slave One, obviously this was the whole sort of heist to get it back and invading Jabba's former palace. At this point, it would have been Bib Fortuna's palace. But also we got the revenge scene, which I loved seeing. We've got the Kirsten Striders, or Kirsten Strider, whatever they're called, sort of charging across the Dune Sea. And just in the back, you see Slave One flying in. I'm like,
I really like the long sort of
drawn out shot
of just Slave One slowly getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and you can just
know
what's gonna happen.
And Fennec's there like, okay. It's like, what? It's like, this is going really well. 5 minutes later, Sarlacc pit. This is not going well.
Yeah, so he flies in, does that. I think he's got issues.
And she's like, nope, still going to stick with him because I've owed my life to him.
I've made a life debt, and apparently I can't back out now. Yeah, I was going to say, it definitely was a very brutal scene to when he was taken out. So obviously, like, he became, like, good friends and almost like a family bond with the Sand people. And then they got wiped out by the Raiders. And then he wanted his revenge anyway. But, yeah, just to sort of see the whole flying in, blasting the Slave One guns down the center of them, taking out all of them.
Exactly.
And then
I loved it. Now, one key sort of factor of this episode as well is obviously we did get Black Krrsantan having a showdown in the cantina, which as a scene I really liked because you got Fett walking in there and some poor bloke is thrown into a plant pot and you just see like Tem or Boba Fett go, okay.
Oh, that's what's happening.
And Garsa Whip, who is a fantastic character played by a fantastic actress, just trying to negotiate with Krrsantan and just failing horribly because like, rips arm off and just chucks him across. It's like, and of course we do get Max Rebo as well. Again, like my favorite character in the Book of Boba Fett currently, if not the whole of Star Wars. I like the blue guys, okay? I like Thrawn, Max. Just, I just like the thing where it's like,
Rex.
Hit it, Max. Yeah, I like Rex as well. Out of all the clone troopers, Rex is probably my favorite as well. So, though Commander Thrawn was, but that's another discussion for another time. I just like the, hit it, Max.
I'm just waiting for the Mandalorian or Book of Boba Fett, like Max's personal CD album to come out.
Honestly,
as like a piece of merch.
I was doing like the clip or short we put out. I'm like, I would actually listen to his music, like stick that on Spotify or something, because the music's actually kind of catchy. I'm like, just release that.
Max is out here making some bangers, and like he managed to get to the gig in the end and maintain his presence at it. So just give him a release date.
Do you remember the old in the UK? I'm not sure if they're like available internationally. In the UK, we've had Now That's What I Call the 80s. Now That's What I Call Max Rebo. Or like, so, now that's what I call the sounds of Tatooine. Now that's what I call the Dune Sea. There you go.
Yeah.
Just something like, please, someone. If no one photoshops it, I'm gonna Photoshop it because that just sounds hilarious.
Just make like a little fake CD, like or vinyl picture for the front of it.
No, that's what I call Max V. But I just please, because I can't remember what his band was called now, the one he was part of. But obviously, he seems to just be on like a duet now because he's got the typical cantina music guy whose species name I forget off the top of my head.
He's gone solo. He doesn't need his band anymore. He's gone solo.
Well, he seems to be the one in charge currently, so he's got the gig, man. He's really got the gig.
He got the gig.
Man, I gotta get him a gig, man. You knew the impression was coming here.
Yeah, like turns out that Jabba's barge going down and him losing his band was actually the best thing ever happened to him.
Yeah, because now he's got a permanent gig in a much better establishment. Well, apart from a Wookiee who was very upset throwing some Trandoshans. Yeah. I don't know. Obviously, Wookiees and the Trandoshans have always had like a historic like beef in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah.
So I guess unless there's like a deeper one going with Krrsantan there. I've not read his comics too much personally, so I'm not sure if there's one that goes down deeper.
Yeah.
Because obviously we know he combated Obi-Wan Kenobi at one point, so that's something I hope will maybe be explored or touched upon in Obi-Wan Kenobi, which of course we're back in a couple months discussing.
I get excited. Don't get me excited.
I don't know. I like seeing Krrsantan actually join Fett's forces, though.
Yeah, like obviously at the end of the episode, it kind of he ends up being in Jabba's palace, and it sort of appears as if he has joined Boba for his job. I think it's again going back up to the whole Trandoshan fight thing. It's kind of interesting to see like he's obviously just sat at the bar drinking his beer.
He was very much like reclined like back.
Yeah, and then we obviously see the Trandoshans like winning a lot of money or credits while gambling, and obviously that just aggresses him and makes him angry. So it would be interesting to see if there's maybe some like background history to maybe those particular Trandoshans, and maybe he already knows them, or maybe it's just a case of like knowing like Trandoshans hunt Wookiees and skin them alive and stuff like that. And it's just like, I just absolutely despise seeing you.
Actually, funny you should say that, because remember obviously one of the main Trandoshans we see in the Book of Boba Fett is Doc Strassi, who is sort of the head of that family on Tatooine.
Yeah.
He's obviously, of course, like voiced by Robert Rodriguez, who is obviously one of the series' mainline directors, and obviously brought Boba Fett back on screen. Now, when Doc Strassi is in Chapter 1, he sort of presents his tribute to Fett as a crime lord. He sort of presents like a rug or a pelt. Somebody made the connection on Reddit. That's actually a Wookiee pelt he's presenting to Fett. Now, I don't think Doc Strassi is actually in the cantina when this all kicks off. I'm not sure if he's actually there. I'll have to double check. Unless he's one of the ones who just gets thrown into a plant pot or something. But it might just be his like men that are there. But I'm not sure whether like, that Krrsantan is aware of like that getting presented, in which case like, what, man, that's my brother you just
That's my homie. What are you doing with him?
Now like obviously Fett's been presented that. What if he's just walking around Jabba's or Fett's palace like, what's that doing on the wall? That's my brother you've got on the wall. Like that would certainly like, he'd be pulling Fett out of a back tank and going, you
I say it's when Boba goes around to like his place and he's just got like he's got like the lizard people's body all of the walls, and then like a load of clone trooper armor just lying around. It's like, wait a minute. It's like, I just took some inspiration from your palace.
I popped around, just thought I'd do it, but either way. But obviously the Rancor, you picked this up as well, didn't you?
Yeah. I thought it was very cool to sort of have the meeting place be on top of the Rancor gauge, and when obviously the crime bosses show him some disrespect and almost like a threat, you immediately get the protectiveness of the Rancor, because as we're told in the episode beforehand, like the first person the Rancor sees, they'll bond to. And obviously that's again shown in this episode where he immediately tries to get violent at the premise of Boba being threatened even slightly.
Which is really cool. Like, he's a highly intelligent creature, obviously, to pick that up. I was like, hopefully someone gets fed. It sounds very sadistic, but hopefully someone gets fed to it anyway, so we get that traditional sort of...
Oh, yeah, we just get to see him, like, being
obviously
fed.
almost like, was it Krrsantan? No, not Krrsantan. The guard, or the Night Wind Assassin was almost fed to a Rancor. But there was obviously no Rancor in the pit at the time. So he's like, oh my god, I'm going to get eaten. Just a mouse runs out. It's like...
Yeah.
Speaking of mouses, or rats, we do get the dynamic duo, which is the cooking droids and the B-Tech General Grievous. Now...
B-Tech General Grievous.
That scene, you can take it away on that scene.
Yeah, so obviously when they're breaking into Jabba's palace to get back Slave One, we see Boba and we see Fennec sneaking in, and we get to see 2 cooking droids and a rat-catching droid. The rat-catching droid, which obviously you are not a fan of, but I actually really like.
Type. I honestly, there was one annoying-ass one in the Clone Wars during the Naboo poison arc, where he was running around the bombs. Hated him. And every time I see those droids, you just want to boot them across the field because it's really annoying.
I mean, they're the perfect size and shape. But...
I've never seen a useful one. Someone find me one of those droids that's actually been useful and not annoying.
I mean, it's catching rats. That's pretty useful.
He was sobbing out of fear and turned himself off.
Hey, if I was him, I'd do the same thing in that situation. If I had an off button, I'd do it to myself on the regular.
Do you reckon he's still in, like, Jabba's palace? Like, does he, like, Fett put him in the bin?
we see him again. We see him.
Do we?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he's at the... okay, we do see him again.
We see him at the meeting. He's walking around with, like, something. I can't remember what now. I think it's, like, a bottle of wine or something. If you remember, just drop it in the comments and remind us.
Maybe it's, like, a vintage wine he's got.
Maybe, yeah. It's a fine wine.
Rat stew. Oh.
My finest rat wine. Yeah, but we see 2 cooking droids, one of whom happens to have 6 arms and gets ready to fight Boba with them. With
an array of weapons. You just know that was made as a reference. Like,
it's a long-lost stepbrother of General Grievous, obviously. He wanted to become a chef instead of joining the droid army. He didn't want to be a general.
What was it? One of the other droids there as well, who is the other droid. He looks very similar to the torture droid that was seen in Return of the Jedi. The one who would send, I think C-3PO and R2-D2 got brought to him. And he's like, the master needs a new servant on his sail barge. You shall go there. And then obviously Matt Berry's droid was the one in the back torturing, like, the Gonk droid and spinning him upside down in Return of the Jedi. So whether that's the same droid, I'm not sure. It could be same class. But it's really cool to see either way because, like, it's more connectivity. Also, we're getting to see more of Jabba's palace as well. Obviously, it's Fett's palace now, but obviously iconic, is Jabba's palace because he sat there for, like, 300 to 500 years, something stupid like that. So, like, obviously, it's always going to be known as Jabba's palace in a sense.
Yeah.
But we're seeing more of it.
It's definitely interesting to see a lot more of the palace, and I guess the droids could have just been repurposed, because
Probably.
we obviously see the assassin droid in Mandalorian who gets repurposed to be a nurse droid, although it still retains all of its fighting capabilities.
To nurse and protect.
Yeah, its purposes changed. So I guess maybe you could just immediately take the assumption that if these droids are the same ones as in the originals, then they've just been repurposed for their new owners. Because when Fortuna took over, he obviously became massively overweight. And I guess that would make sense if he's like letting the whole crime boss thing slip and people just don't respect him.
Well, that's what's pointed out in these episodes where Bib Fortuna took over and just lost the plot basically because he's let a thing slip out. And like he didn't really maintain faith, maintain control of what was there, but it slowly seeped away.
Yeah.
Hence, all the Pikes were able to start negotiating of a mayor and various things like that, and this sort of power vacuum. I think it was a great quote, wasn't it, from Fett in this episode? It's like power hates a vacuum or something like that.
Yeah,
which is a good one. This episode's full of two great quotes. One is power hates a vacuum, and also like you can't survive. You've got to have a tribe or something, isn't it? Like I can't remember what line he says now, but it's really relevant because he like. You need a tribe to survive, essentially. Also, that's a reference to him surviving with the tribe. Now he's building his own one. So while it is like Boba Fett's criminal empire, it's almost like Fett's tribe in a sense, because he's building like the mods, the Rancor, obviously, Krrsantan, and obviously anyone else he's calling in to help him in a sense, which is something we should talk about. Obviously, the ending scene of Chapter 4 was like, we need some hired muscle.
Yeah.
Cue the music theme.
Yeah, did you pay attention type thing?
It's definitely a call to Mandalorian. We're seeing him turn up.
Yeah.
I'm calling it now. Obviously, this was reported by the Bespin Bulletin or Cinelex, one of them, that Din Djarin, aka the Mandalorian, would be showing up somewhere in the Book of Boba Fett, basically either episode 4 or episode 5. Now, considering we've just passed episode 4, it's probably going to be episode 5. How Din will show up, though, not really sure. Like, it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
It'll definitely be interesting to see for sure. Like, they could obviously just have him land on world in his new ship, because he's gonna need a new ship after we last left him. Either that, or he just gets off a transport like we saw with the Pikes.
Yeah, he just steps off the space taxi service.
Yeah.
Or we bring Moff Gideon's cruiser just in and go, well, we've arrived now.
This is the firepower we're gonna use. Yeah. I'd say that'd be a real big flex on Mando's part. Just be like, I was gonna get a new ship, but I thought, why not just have a Star Cruiser?
Yeah, I mean, I was discussing this today because we've got a video, it should be out on my channel by now, on like what happened after season 2's final, because this builds into season 3 of Mando, which we know virtually nothing about so far. The only things we know about season 3 of Mando is obviously Grogu will presumably be absent, and also the Darksaber plot needs resolving. Those are the two sort of concrete things we know.
Yeah.
Obviously, we can count that Mandalore is going to be in it somehow, and obviously Bo-Katan, and perhaps Ahsoka Tano again. But other than that, we don't know much about it. So my reasoning was for the video we made is Mando realistically needs to show up in the Book of Boba Fett, because that'll sort of give us a hint of where his next adventure is. Because I think this idea of Fett takes place in between Mando season 2 and season 3. So therefore, if he pops up, he can say, oh, I'm on my way to Mandalore as he's leaving, or something like that. Therefore, we know where he's going now. So fans of the Mandalorian can go, cool, okay, we've got a bit more connectivity in there. Because Star Wars is really doing that really well lately, filling in the gaps.
Yeah.
So it makes sense we know where he's going and such.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a big point of the Book of Boba Fett and the Mandalorian and all the other series that we're getting coming out now, is that they're exploring all those areas that have been left uncovered by the films and by the cartoon series. So we're getting like all those nice fillers, and we're able to sort of go, okay, cool. So this connects to this, and this is why this person's in this area now. And again, it just makes our Star Wars marathons even longer and better.
Oh yeah, because you think about now, like you've got 9 films, then the anthology films as well, and obviously all the series which fit in really well. Like Mando fits in perfectly. I mean, we binged season 1 and 2 completely on Christmas Day, and almost finished. I think we got to chapter 16 or 15. We got to. So yeah, it's essential Star Wars watching now, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I think probably it's easy to get Star Wars fans into Star Wars via the likes of Mandalorian and like Boba Fett and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like Boba Fett is not the strongest of series so far. I still think Mando outmatches it. But also it's in the trouble is that I think Boba Fett and Mando is they're in such a similar vein that differentiating both can be a bit difficult sometimes, because they both arguably are. Man in armor is in a Western environment walking around shooting people. Yes, there's more advanced stories
and
to
gathering allies.
Yeah, but they're both similar, aren't they? And also having cameos pop in there. That's one thing I do worry about Star Wars shows a little bit too much lately, is are they relying on cameos a bit too much here and there? What do you think?
I think that the sort of cameos are kind of essential because obviously you have all of the main Star Wars films and none of them follow like one set storyline, and it's hard to have a long successful story in any kind of genre or like game or film or series where you just follow one person solidly unless you have a lot to work off. And even then they still have like side characters and backup characters that are stepping in to help them and have their own sort of like essence and story in of itself.
Yeah, because like obviously one of my big like theories for the Book of Boba Fett is we're gonna get Cad Bane turning up. Like we've heard whispers about it online. So we did a video the other day calling on it. I'm like, well, it's good to have these cameos and such. Like I didn't expect and I didn't actually see the idea or theory or rumor that Mando would be showing up in Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah.
So I was totally caught by surprise by it. And today, like then I started reading, it was, oh, someone did report it like 6 months ago or whatever. I'm like, that makes more sense now. But I'm like, maybe there's too many cameos. Because see, I still think Crimson Dawn will show up at the end. And we might get a cameo from someone there. I presume we'll get a bounty hunter cameo, which is going to be Cad Bane. I'm really confident on. But I'm like, oh, let's hope we don't do too many. Because I see, like, you know, Book of Boba, also Mandalorian was full of cameos, which is good and bad. But it's also like, it just saturates the universe a little bit too much sometimes. It's just one of my like little concerns of it. Like, it doesn't damage the story, but almost like everybody knows everybody.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you have to consider that, like, the world of Star Wars is so huge and expansive, and like there's so many characters to use and utilize that it would almost be like a waste to not use the ones that are perfectly set for it. So obviously, if we do get Cad Bane in the Book of Boba Fett in the next episode, or maybe in the episode afterwards, he's like a perfect sort of bounty hunter character that fits into the Western style because he's just the complete embodiment of a Western
He's got the hat, the voice, you know.
Exactly, yeah. Like
so a little fun detail about Cad Bane. So I was reading up on this to obviously write the video we did for it. And Jango Fett actually trained him a little bit.
Oh.
And then Bane would go on to offer training to Boba Fett as well. So essentially, you know, the apprentice is now the master in a sense, to use like a common Star Wars phrase. So whether we're going to see like a showdown between them, because obviously there was a showdown in deleted or unused Clone Wars concept where Cad Bane and Boba Fett had like a Western style shootout, and that's where Fett got the dent in his helmet from. That's where Boba Fett got the iconic dent, which is still there today on the helmet. Like it's never been buffed out or anything like that.
Yeah.
So whether we're going to have round 2 of that, because I'm pretty sure that confrontation is canon, because in the Bad Batch, Bane has a cybernetic implant in his head, showing like he's been grazed there. So whether that has actually happened, that's why the dent there, that could be pretty cool.
I think they'll have a common ground that they'll have to work together, but they'll still have that sort of level of rivalry and sort of like a confirmation of like at some point they'll talk about their confrontation or like them having beef. But yeah, I think they'll have a common goal, which will mean that they'll have to work together. But they'll still have this like, sort of bitter rivalry.
I wonder who sends Cad Bane to Tatooine, though. If he does show up, like many of us are predicting and hoping, I wonder who does send him there. Because the Pikes, obviously, they've not sent a bounty hunter yet, unless the Order of the Night Wind was sent via them, which now looks even more concrete because, obviously, the Mayor is a puppet of the Pikes. Therefore, the Night Wind Assassins originally tried taking out Fett and Shand. So whether, if Cad Bane does show up, whether he'll be sent by the likes of Crimson Dawn, that could be interesting. Because virtually after Bad Batch, we know nothing about where he's gone. He just disappeared off the sort of like canon map.
Yeah, I mean, we obviously know that Fennec knows Cad Bane, and they obviously had like, they had their beef with Boba and the whole cloning situation where they're trying to obtain the DNA.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's too much of a stretch to guess that maybe Fennec somewhat stayed in contact with him because they're bounty hunters and sometimes different bounty hunters help each other.
Yeah.
So it's possible that obviously when she mentions that like you can buy muscle with credits, like he was always a character that was open to the idea of enough credits will buy him to do most jobs, if any.
Maybe it would be like it was like any job for the right price.
Yeah, exactly.
I wonder if I do a U-turn where it's like, we tease you the Mandalorian, but we've got the other Western guy. And so that would be a big turnaround, wouldn't it? Where Bane's actually the ally. That could be funny. Oh, I like that idea. Not sure if it'd play off too much. Because now they've basically set themselves up. It needs to be the Mandalorian, or it's going to be elected. A lot of people can be disappointed. Because now everyone online is like, oh, Mandalorian's turning up. Well, hey, it's his music. Because arguably it is his music. It's no one else's track. And also that track has not been used in the show.
Yeah.
So he almost has to be there in a sense, or some form of him, whether he's the Mandalorians or, you know, Din Djarin himself. Something related to him. Maybe just send Grogu.
I say you. Well, I mean,
Turns up. Fuck you.
Chokes out all of the gangsters.
brings the two hearts. Fuck this.
I guess like there's a possibility premise that I've literally only just thought of now is what if Mando meets Bane in his travels and turns up with him? So Mando appears, and we get the Mando music, and then walking down from the ship as well is Cad Bane, and then you obviously get like Boba and Cad like sharing a look, and like, maybe some like
the hell you do back here?
Yeah, some like choice words, and then like, I heard that you needed a job doing type thing.
Any job at a bad price. Oh, because obviously Cad Bane in the Bad Batch has his new ship, which is the Justifier, which is built for like prisoner transport and also just bigger.
Yeah.
Whereas obviously Mando has no ship currently, we presume, unless it is the M1 Starfighter rumor, which is still pretty interesting. But I'm like, 50-50.
I think. Well, again, we could just have him turn up in the Star Cruiser. It's like I've decided to keep it. It's mine.
Just like foghorn sounds that pulls in, like a Dreadnought sound from The Last Jedi. Just that sound that pulls in above, knocking off a tower probably as it comes in. Can we park here? Yeah,
just like a big shadow goes over the whole of Tatooine as the cruiser just turns up.
It's a bloody big cruiser, to be fair. Like, that'd be impressive, but it's a bloody big cruiser. In terms of like other things for obviously this chapter, I think obviously speculation with chapter 5. Obviously, the Mandalorian is going to be a big part. It's very evident, obviously, the title suggests it, the Gathering Storm. Sort of Fett is gathering his assets for the oncoming storm, in a sense. So whether we're going to see that war take place in episode 5, because obviously in a minute we have 5, 6, and 7. That's it for Book of Boba Fett. Only 3 more remaining chapters or episodes. So, you know, where are they going to fit all of this in? Obviously, presumably we're going to get a big battle with the Pikes.
Yeah.
There's, in terms of trailer content, there is one scene we've not seen yet, and that is Drash sort of riding down the street as it looks like it's been torn up. So if like they unleashed the Rancor or something, that I reckon we will see Fett ride the Rancor at one point, probably through the streets of Mos Espa, or perhaps Mos Eisley, one of them. It's probably going to be Mos Espa because that's what he sits on the domain of Jabba's palace or Fett's palace. So that's obviously one scene we've not seen yet. Other than that, we've seen nearly all the material for obviously the Book of Boba Fett from trailers. There is one shot of Slave One approaching the palace. I don't think we've seen, but in terms of that, we've seen everything. So we are really in sort of the unknown frontier now for what's actually coming down the pipeline. I do reckon obviously Mandalorian's going to show up in chapter 5. Cad Bane, if he's not in chapter 5, it'll be chapter 6. Chapter 7, I'm saying Crimson Dawn. I'm making a bet now they are going to be the ultimate sort of like reveal.
Yeah.
Whether we will get a season 2 confirmation, I'm unsure of this yet. Because I thought Boba Fett was a limited series, meaning we're only doing one season, much like Kenobi. But I don't know. Do you think at this point they could do a second season?
I think they could definitely do a second season because obviously we've got Boba trying to take over Tatooine or Mos Espa and Mos Eisley and sort of bring his order to it. And he, at the moment, he's agreeing with the crime bosses that they're going to stay neutral while he sorts out the Pikes, which always means that there's the possibility in the premise that either they'll double cross him and he'll sort that all out in this season, and then they'll make a new season where he has like a new issue, like either new people come or like there's a threat that's
perhaps
always
if
been
Crimson
there.
Dawn are revealed, then they become the main villain of season 2. Like I say, I'd have to double check my notes, but I'm not sure the series has been confirmed for a second season. Like I thought it was a limited series, like Obi-Wan. But realistically, I think if it's doing well, they'll renew it anyway. Emily, why cut yourself off there? I think at some point, obviously, this story has to end. A bit like over in the Star Trek side of things, Picard's only doing 3 seasons because that's it. The story's done there.
Yeah.
So Fett could do a thing where it's only 3 seasons like that. Crimson Dawn next one, then Big Crime Empire, and just cut it off there.
Yeah.
If all these series are the culminate in this giant cinematic event, which is of course Grand Admiral Thrawn himself, my favorite character, but Book's over there.
We know he's coming at some point.
Then do you reckon they'll be able to fit into it, or do you reckon they'll leave him out of it?
I think depending on if they do bring in Mando and possibly other bounty hunters, and the way that Mando pans out and the way the Ahsoka series might pan out, it's definitely a possibility that they could all come together in like a Justice League or Avengers style group to like build up their forces and
Star
fight.
Wars, assemble!
Yeah, like try and fight him because obviously Thrawn is like a huge, immense threat, and he's been like gathering all of his strength from what we know in the lore and history that hasn't been decanonized. So it's definitely a possibility that they're going to need a lot of main characters, and also it leads to the possibility that if they get a lot of main characters together, it means they're going to kill a lot of main characters as well.
Ooh,
because that's always like a fun
We've
thing
not
to
really
do.
had any sort of major deaths, have we, in recent series? No one's really died, have they?
No.
Thinking about it, unless we're forgetting anyone's death. Obviously, the IG droid, one of them. But like,
rest in peace.
we've still got Ahsoka.
It's too soon.
They won't kill her off because we've got a series. Obviously, Kenobi doesn't count because it's back in time. But in the current sort of like, I hate to say like Filoni universe because it's all one universe anyway. No one's died yet. So whether they're waiting with like big events start, a bit like how we did with Avengers, where it's like, oh, you know, Natasha's now dead. Way.
Yeah.
Or if he died and the snap, whatever. Whether that's gonna be a case of it, like Thrawn returning, I personally can't wait for that. Like before we do end off this like podcast for today. Thrawn returning is going to be the ultimate thing. Just seeing that Star Destroyer with a Chimera on it, sort of like cruise in there and like wipe out whatever there. Oh, that'd be epic.
I feel like with Thrawn turning up as well, you'll definitely have the Chimera, and then you'll have like a few more of his other ships turn up, maybe with like some more iconic bad guys.
Gideon was definitely answering to Thrawn. I remain confident in that because Gino Carlo Esposito, who plays Moff Gideon, he basically said, I find it unlikely that Gideon would have all this power, which basically hints that he's answering to someone else.
Yeah, and also...
And the cloning as well. Like,
yeah, and we get Ahsoka saying, literally, like, where is he? So...
It's connecting the dots. Like,
yeah, it would be...
Also,
it would be
only
so
had
weird
a
not
cruiser.
to.
Yeah, he only had a light cruiser. It wasn't really anything special.
It's big, but it's not as big as they can be.
Well, it's not
or
a
as big as
Star
we know they are.
Destroyer,
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Realistically, compare the like Slave 1 or Mando ship ribbon piece with Razor Crest to a Star Destroyer. Massive. Like that thing when it shows up will be intense. And if it is a Chimera as well, seeing that will just be epic. I personally can't wait for that.
Yeah, definitely. It's gonna be so excited to see like it actually come around.
But I do wonder if like Boba Fett would be involved in that. I think they will at this point because I think if Rangers of the New Republic is gone, which it looks like it has, unfortunately, they'll blend the series into it and go from there, which makes it would basically take the scale of it, which still would be pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it'll definitely be cool to see how all of these series continue to work together and flow into each other, and maybe see if they do build up to something much bigger. Maybe a new film. Maybe the Shadow of Thrawn or something.
Shadow of Thrawn. I reckon they're called Heir to the Empire. Because Thrawn's original book is called Heir to the Empire.
Yeah.
So I reckon that'll be the sort of introduction thing. It'll be called Heir to the Empire. Imagine it like Chapter 12 or something like that, or Chapter 1, Heir to the Empire.
Yeah.
That'd be a great Ahsoka title, because even if they do the Ahsoka series in chapters as well, like Chapter, like, you know, obviously Chapter 8 was called, what was Chapter 8 of Mando called? Redemption or something like that or something? May have been called that. Obviously, like, Chapter, like, 15 was called The Tragedy, or Chapter 14, stuff like that. So imagine that, like, Chapter 8 of Ahsoka is called The Heir to the Empire as Thrawn returns. Because Gideon was not introduced up until Chapter 8. He was referenced, but not introduced properly until then. Or Chapter 7, technically, because he had the cameo, then shot the place up, so...
Yeah, I guess it'll just be interesting to see how the Ahsoka series works, whether they're going to have her, like, we already know that she's already been looking for him, so she's going to find him and then sort some stuff out there and, like, fight him and stuff, or
Sabine's been cast.
whether she's going to keep looking for him up until the point that she, like, finds him in the last one, and then that's when they call it, like, Heir to the Empire, and then they have the actual, like, a big film, maybe, that is Heir to the Empire.
Well, obviously, they've got a couple of films coming soon. Taika Waititi is obviously doing his film. We know a few other ones are coming down the pipeline. Potentially. I think they'll keep it to streaming services, though. I think it makes more sense.
I think it's definitely a good way forward. And
it's
it
Star
means
Wars'
that,
avenue.
Yeah, and, like, obviously, if they want to try something new and it doesn't work, then they can get that feedback immediately and alter stuff.
Well, I think we'll leave it there today on that note, because obviously we've been through a ton of content so far. Chapter 5 of the Book of Boba Fett is airing next week. We'll be back probably. Hope we have a special guest, I think. Maybe we'll get
someone.
Well, our friendly special guest on board to actually discuss some behind the scenes aspects of it and what it's like making it.
That would definitely be fun.
Or it'll be Troy.
Or it'll be Troy, yeah. The viewers love Troy.
We've not seen him yet, but we'll love him. Everyone, thank you for watching this podcast. This is, of course, our first one. Please leave some feedback. And, of course, if you're new around here, you've managed to last probably what is almost 40 minutes to an hour, hit that subscribe button if you've not already and can withstand us. So, yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
We'll see you next time. May the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you.